and mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. In the black community, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why?
But once you get a control and an understanding of who you are, no one can use you against you. No one can ever use your mental illness against you. You've already spoke about it, so what you got?
The biggest point in life to resolve mental health is like giving a fuck about a person.
Where did you get the courage? I got the courage. The 2 words. I care.
It's Chill Will Radio, where connections will be made, advice will be given, jokes will be told, and things will get real. My name is Willis Cooks, and I'm your host. But understand this show is not meant to be used as a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Enjoy the show, y'all. Yo, welcome to another episode of Chill Will Radio. Chill Will Radio. Thank you for tuning in. For those who are listening now, thank you. For those who will tune in a little bit into the show, thank you. And for those who haven't listened yet, good looking. You might not be listening now, but you will tune in eventually. Everybody's gonna catch on to this at some point in time, man. Thank you to everyone who's listening in. But welcome to another episode of Chill World Radio. I'm excited to be here. Because it's been a great week. I had a lot of great things happen to me. Also a lot of frustrating things that's happened to me as well. One of the things that I myself have been practicing regularly is I like to think of myself as a patient person, but I am very impatient when it comes to people who what's the right word I'm trying to use? I'm having like the biggest brain fart right now, but oh well. I'm very impatient when it comes to individuals who, yes, misuse their authority, right? Misuse their authority. They believe they're just like above everything. And gosh, I've had a supervisor at my work who is not putting me on a schedule. I swear to God, I hate jobs because of this, man. I hate jobs with a passion. Like, anybody knows me knows I really, really hate the concept of a job. I hate asking somebody, hey, can I have today off? I hate calling in and lying. Like, hey, I'm calling in sick, but I'm not really sick, just so I can chill and get a few extra hours. And like, this individual in this one job, it's like, we all know California is mad expensive. California is mad expensive. So the way I use my jobs, I have 2 jobs, and the way I use my jobs, I kind of use certain jobs pay for certain bills. And when this lady isn't putting me on the schedule, I can't pay for certain bills because I can pay for certain bills, but I'm going into my other budget, and that's making me lose money in other areas. And it's like, what the fuck, lady? You fucking with my shit. And like, I literally had to have a sit down with her, when I went in Friday. Literally had to sit down when I went in with her Friday. And I had to tell her, like, yo, you have to put me on a schedule, or I'm about to open my availability up to other houses, right? Because they have a lot of facilities around, and we can work at different facilities. So I tell her, like, yo, you need to put me on the schedule more often before I let the other facilities know, like, yo, you got a great black man that's ready to work. And, oh, I'm sorry, it was just a lot going on, and, and blah, 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 and woo woo woo, and I don't care about none of that. Put me on the damn schedule. So, mind you, she does the schedule weekly. And the schedule for this job is based off of the schedule for my main job, and that schedule's done monthly. So I tell her, like, yo, when I get my monthly schedule for my main job, I could just shoot you over the days I'm free, and you can just lock me in for the whole month. But no, she wants to do this shit on a weekly basis. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I go to her, I tell her Friday or whatever, like, yo, put me on the schedule, blah, blah. I give her my availability for the week. She sent me the weekly schedule for this upcoming week, Monday to Sunday. I am not on the fucking schedule. Not on the schedule. I text her immediately, like, yo, why I'm not on the schedule. That's exactly what it says because at this point I'm just frustrated. Why am I not on the schedule? she hits me with the she hits me with the, oh, I forgot. Maybe I'll fill you in sometime during the week. Bitch, what the fuck? Like, I was hot. I was thoroughly hot. So I tell her again, like, yo, I'm about to send you my availability for the whole month. Put me on a schedule. You have one more week. And I tell you, you have 1 more week to put me on a schedule, or I'm just going to, go to other houses. Because there's other houses in the whole, I guess, company or whatever that needs the help. So if you don't put me on a schedule, bet, that's fine. I'm going to just step off, go somewhere else. So that was the most frustrating part of the week. But outside of that, it's very rewarding because I've had a lot. I get a lot of reward from the work that I do. A lot of my patients tell me, a lot of the patients tell me how the treatment is going along, what they've been doing, and how they've been growing. And I've had a lot of patients this week kind of tell me, like, yo, I got a job. I was able to move out of my sober living. I've been sober for 5 months. I've been sober for 3 months. And being sober for 3 months, 5 months, 2 weeks may not seem like a very long time, but to someone who's, has a chemical dependency, for someone who's, has a problem with substance abuse, it's a long ass time. So shouts out to all those individuals who are, remaining sober, who are getting out of their depression, who are, fighting through whatever they're fighting through. Shout out to all of those people who are literally putting in the work every single day to get out of their shit, because it's hard. Very, very hard. Very, very hard. And, as I was coming in today to think about the show, sorry, I'm over here burping for some reason, but as I was pulling it in, I was catching up on some of the episodes, right? So after I listened to the Get Right this morning, shouts out to them, great show, you guys. I also listened to Keith's show Monday morning. I was listening to it this morning, and the first part of the show, he spoke about forgiveness, and I was kind of planning out the show in my head in regards to like what I'm gonna say, how I'm gonna say it, and things like that. And as I was listening to Monday morning, it comes on Monday morning, every Monday, 8:30 Eastern, 8:30 out here. So 11:30 on the East. Keith, good news. But as I was listening to Monday morning coming into the station, he brought up the word forgiveness in the first part of the show. And when he brought up the word forgiveness, I was like, okay, and mind you, I'm thinking of it from a clinical therapeutic lens. So as he's speaking about forgiveness, I started to think about how a lot of the patients that I work with, and a lot of people in general, they don't like the word forgiveness, because it's like, how can I forgive somebody that done beat me my whole life? How can I forgive like that person who molested me and all of this other stuff? Nobody's trying to hear that. And so as I'm listening to it, that's how I'm thinking. And then he started to speak about how forgiveness starts with self. And that's absolutely right, because that's what I started to think about as I was listening to him. So as I'm listening to him, I pause it, and I start to think about my week, and I start to think about, some of the things I wanted to say. And that caused me to think of and I'm going to vent a little bit right now, but that caused me to think of, my recent situation, and how I've been a dick to like someone recently. I've been doing a lot of dick moves for a lot of bullshit reasons that were based out of my own personal insecurities, and like based off my own insecurities. I'm worried about what the next person's going to say and things like that. And I started to think about that, and how I started to think about that, and how I need to be able to forgive myself, because I'm so big on the fact that I need to be able to grow. I do not want to be that fuck nigga. I do not want to be that fuck boy. I am not trying to be no dick. I am not trying to be like, the other individuals within my male community who trashes women, who run women through the mud. Like I take pride in not being that guy. So for the past few months, I've been a dick to someone, and it's crazy because in the midst of you being a dick or a fuckboy or something like that, you don't really notice it. And for me, I didn't really notice it because I'm big on honesty. So I'm big on telling somebody my intentions from the gate, right? So I told this individual my intentions from the gate, and then it was like, okay, cool. Because I put it out there, I'm not being a dick anymore. Because I put it out there, I'm free to do whatever. And That's completely false. Completely false, because a dick is a dick regardless. Period. Whether you're out in the open with it, whether you out in the open with it and you show it and you let it swing, or you just like hide it, you're a dick regardless. You're a fuckboy regardless. And I didn't really understand that until, you know, I've had conversations with like my fellow mentors and some friends, and had a conversation with this individual, and it was kind of like, yo, I was. Because she would start to tell me how she would feel. She would start to, yes, I'm talking about a woman. She would start to tell me how she would feel. She would start to tell me, you know, certain things that I would say that would make her feel a certain way. And I was like, fuck, I'm doing that? You know? And I've gotten to a place to where, okay, I've understood that, okay, I was being a dick. Now I need to completely stop being those dick moves. So now I'm kind of like, okay, telling her like, all right, the dick side is over. Like the Willis Johnson fuckable side is done, because it's like I'm knowledgeable of what I was doing, and I've been beating myself up for that, you know, a little bit during the conversation I've had, and you know, a little bit after it. I was kind of, you know, dwelling on it a little bit because I'm big on that. And when I was listening to Keith, to tie it all in, when I was listening to Keith speak about forgiveness, it was like, okay, Willis, you need to forgive yourself, because I'm big on growth. I'm extremely big on growth, right? And no matter what, we're never going to be that same person who we was in the past. We're not going to be that same person who we was last week. We're not going to be that same person who we were yesterday. Shoot, something may happen in the studio right now, and I may not be the same person who I will be in the next 5 minutes. You know, things are going to happen in our life that's going to cause us to change. So, you know, things happen in my life, and I've had certain conversations that caused me to be more aware of my dick moves. And that caused me to change. So when I brought it up to her, she was like, what? You were just speaking about all of this stuff yesterday. How could you make that switch that fast? And it was like, it's a combination of me being acknowledged, conversation of me being knowledgeable of my behavior. Because a lot of times, a lot of messed up people don't know that they're doing messed up things, because that's just who they are. You know, it's about being knowledgeable of your behavior and being open for the change. See, because I'm extremely open for any type of change, and because I wasn't knowledgeable of my behavior, man, I was not changing at all. You know, so from what Keith said, it's like, yes, you got to forgive yourself. And I also want to add something else to that. But when it comes to forgiving yourself, the other thing you want to do is give yourself room to grow, because none of us is perfect. No matter how much I try to not be a fuckboy and a dick and all of this stuff, yo, I have regrets. I've done negative things with women. Like, I've been like the ho in college. College was fun. I firmly believe in the whole phase for men and women, you know. And in those phases, it's kind of like, yeah, but it's just like you grow, you get old, and you gotta forgive yourself for the negative things that you have done, but also give yourself that room to grow. So just because you're doing something messed up today, that does not mean you can't redeem yourself tomorrow. And even though to some individuals this may seem kind of fairly small to some folks, but to me, like, I'm big on, like, I'm not trying to be no dick. Like, I've cheated once in my life, and I got cheated on again. That broke my heart, and I never cheated again. Mind you, this was when I was like 15 years old, so I am on the forefront of the Black Men Don't Cheat, you know, association and all that good stuff. I firmly believe in that. Shout out to all of my faithful black men out there. But yeah, that's who I am, and I'm big on that, because I just make so much of an effort to not be that guy. But that's been my week, you know. So shout out to Keith for making me think into that a little bit deeper. And he also spoke about in that, you know, taking the stairs. And one thing that I'm not sure he said on it, but the one thing that stuck with me my whole entire life, that sticks with me now, and that popped out when he spoke about taking the stairs, is that the reason so many people don't take the stairs is because it's the hard way out. The elevator is easy, and we unconsciously do easy things, but we consciously run away from the hard things. You know, I think it was Chris who made a comment saying that he's a very impatient person, but he's patient when it comes to the elevator. And it's like, it's crazy, because we are patient when it comes to those easy things, but we are impatient when it comes to those hard things, which kind of, it stuck out to me, because it's like, why would you be patient for something that it's going to come easy. You're not really going to get any real reward for it, but you're not willing to be patient for something that you know you're going to get a reward for. And that spoke a lot with everything that I do, with everything a lot of people does. It's like this easy stuff is like the elevator. The elevator is easy, so I'm finna wait on it. I could be waiting for this thing for 5, 10, 20 minutes, but it's easy. I don't have to deal with the pain of going up the stairs or whatever the case may be. But you gotta look at it like, dang, it's gonna take me a long time. It's gonna be hard. My thighs gonna be hurting. I'm gonna be sweating and blah 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 and all this extra stuff. So I ain't got no patience for that. I just need to go. But in the midst of it, we actually are patient. So I guess it all depends on what are you willing to be patient for. 9 times out of 10, a lot of us, we're very patient for the easy stuff. For the hard stuff, we're very impatient. And that kind of turned into a synopsis of his show. But, his show kind of spoke to me on my way here as I was listening to it, as I was, preparing for my show, Chill Will Radio. So as we're going to step into the comments real quick. Somebody comment in. Terrence Stewart, right on, man. Thank you for actually listening to the show, man. Today's show is a very special show for me because I deal a lot with this personally. I deal with a lot of this personally. A lot of my patients deal with this, and a lot of my friends deal with this. But one of the things we're going to speak about in the main topic of the show is labels, and why us as black people, we want to stay away from mental health and mental illness, because we don't want to hear those labels, right? Don't label me with this, don't label me with that. And so the major thing that we're going to speak about today is labels, right? The mental health. Are you labeled with this? Does that label actually matter? Should you take on that label? So that's the main thing that we're going to speak about today. But getting right into the self-care tip, man, one of the things that I thoroughly believe everyone should do, put into their self-care regimen like all the time, as much as you can. And this is a very free thing that you do every single day. You actually can do it right now as you're listening to this show, and that's rewarding yourself. I think I briefly spoke about it. I made a post on it a few days ago or a week ago about why it's important to big yourself up and give yourself that credit. Like, we don't give ourselves that credit, because we all know, especially living here in Los Angeles, California, with how expensive it is. Like, it could be way worse. We could be homeless. We could be asking for this and that. Even though we know our job, they don't pay as much. They don't pay us what we're actually worth, but we still make things work. Give yourself that credit, even if you're moving from check to check, even if you're still dealing with the $200 on the EBT and the $200 in the food stamps. And I was a faithful individual of that community. Like, man, the GR. It was crazy. And this is just a quick side note. I lived in a few other states, and I believe California is the only state that has like that hot meal plans. Like, we can buy food from like Jack in the Box and Pizza Hut and all these other things with our EBT card. Other states can't. They only have to go to the grocery store. So I'm like, yeah, they go California. But like I was saying, big yourself up. Give yourself that credit. Give yourself, that win. Reward yourself at the end of the day, because people may do it, but if somebody else do it, it doesn't really matter, because I could just tell you, hey, you're a great person, you're a beautiful woman. It's like if you tell a beautiful woman she's a beautiful woman, but she doesn't really acknowledge it because she has her own things going inside. That person has to look in that mirror, look at themselves, and tell themselves like, yo, I did that. I did this. And I tell my patients all the time, like, that failed suicide attempt is your greatest fuck up. Period. In life, that failed suicide attempt is your greatest fuck up. So give yourself the credit for being alive. Give yourself the credit for actually breathing. Wake up every single morning and just appreciate the fact that you're actually here, because you could be gone. You could be gone, especially when you have certain wins in your life that you weren't really paying attention to, right? Because we have things that we do, we just skate on by, and we just think, oh, things are here, blah, blah, blah. Like, especially those individuals who work extremely hard, right? We could be working hard all the time, and we don't see where we at. Like, I got Keith in the building right now, and Keith is one of those individuals who works extremely hard every single day, right? And for individuals like Keith, myself, and my guest Terrence, who's all in here, we work extremely hard with everything that we do. It's when we work hard, we have our head down. It's kind of like we got that tunnel vision, and we can't see nothing else but that goal, but that thing that light at the end of the tunnel. And then we got our head down so long, we're focused so long on what we're doing, we don't stop to look up and see all of the shit that we've done, to see everything that we've done. And I don't know if Keith does this. I don't know if Terrence does this. I know I do this all the time. I wake up in the morning all the time and tell myself I look good, but but we have to sometimes stop what we doing, look up, and just be like, yo, I'm in a great place. Like, despite if like you hardly got some money for gas because it's expensive, despite if you got $20 and you get paid Friday and it's Monday, you gotta live the rest of the week for with $20. Like, despite all that, because it can get way worse, and the work that you're doing, trust me, it is not being taken for granted. Because we look for those rewards, but we gotta understand we have to reward ourselves first before we can appreciate anybody else's reward. Someone could give us a surprise party and all these other things, but if we don't look at ourselves and say, hey, yeah, I did that for me. Thank you, Willis, for, being great, for being this fabulous individual. Pat yourself on the back and do all of these things for everything that you're doing, man. That's extremely important. So never forget, man, where you're at in your life. I don't care what you have going on. I don't care how bad it is. Whatever. I don't care if you're living on the street, because I was homeless. I was sleeping underneath the 105 freeway right there on Central, where that intersection where Watts started. I was sleeping underneath that freeway. And I can remember, even within that time, I was still telling myself, like, you're going to be all right. Because we have to be patient in a lot of our shit. Things are just tough right now. That don't mean things are going to be tough your whole life. That don't mean things are going to be tough your whole life, but you have to believe that things aren't going to be tough. You have to put in that work every single day and remind yourself that you are great despite any of the shit that's in your face, because what's in your face don't matter. What you have on you don't matter. What people tell you, what society tells you and try to make you out to be, does not matter. What matters is what you believe. What matters is how you move. What matters is the work that you put in. And if you don't put in that work, if you don't believe that you matter, if you don't believe all of these other things, no matter what I tell you, anybody else on this planet tells you, anything else, no matter what, it's not going to matter unless you actually believe that you matter, which is why that's so important on bigging yourself up, giving yourself that credit, and please put that into your self-care regimen every single day. It's quick, it's easy, it's free. It takes 2 seconds to acknowledge yourself. We acknowledge a lot of people, but please acknowledge yourself first. Tell yourself how good you look. Tell yourself how great you are. Tell yourself all of these things, because if you don't, who will? And is it really going to matter if someone else will? Tanisha McLean, thank you. Yes, you got to continue to be great, man, all the time. I cannot get your first name right for shit. Is it D-Der? I gotta ask you, bro. D Gomez. I'm so sorry, man. I got your number down and everything. I'm gonna call you and ask, yo, how do you pronounce your first name? But yo, my man, it's tougher than the $3 steak out here. It's tougher than the $3 steak out. Fuck. I don't even eat meat. And I can remember the reason why I always hated steak is because it's fucking tough. Like, your jaws is just literally getting a workout. So a $3 steak out here, man, that's like you eating frozen peanut butter. Like, it's gonna be bad. Oh man. So going into the main segment of the actual show today, man. Going into the main segment of the actual show today, man, we got Terrence Stewart, man. Terrence Stewart is another individual, another black man out here doing great things within the mental health community. Go ahead, introduce yourself. 'Cause I was going to go on like this little rat. Introduce yourself, man.
Oh, man. First of all, thank you, Will, for having me on here. And Keith, I gave you props off the air, man. I love what you're doing with the Good News radio station. Much love. Appreciate appreciate what you're doing, just period. Again, my name is Terrence Stewart. I'm an associate clinical social worker in California. What that means is I am working towards my hours to get licensed to be a licensed clinical social worker. Currently, right now, I work in community mental health as a therapist. what community mental health is sometimes, I have clients that are in the office. Sometimes I go to the client's home and do therapy. Sometimes I meet them at a Starbucks and we'll just chop it up. But that's pretty much what I do. Graduated just recently from Cal State Northridge with a master's in social work. Master's and undergrad at CSUN. So that's the best Cal State out there.
Man, so you literally out here in these streets.
Out in the streets, man. Yeah, man. Really out in the streets.
I remember. That's tough.
Mm-hmm. But the thing too, because if you guys are familiar with LA or just homelessness in general, out in Skid Row. Yeah. Sometimes you got to go out there. Sometimes you go. It's very funny, especially like working in LA, because sometimes being in Redondo Beach, big chilling at somebody's home, nice little home. Then the next little hour, I'm over in Skid Row doing my thing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, then this is really the reason why I got into this work was, just my niche for helping people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? My niche for whoever it is. You know what I'm saying? My niche for helping people. Funny little story. When I was growing up, I used to. I don't know if they have it now, but I haven't drank soda like that. But you remember like the six packs, and it has like the little rings on. Yeah. So I remember at school I learned that. Oh, there you go. Oh, can you hear me? Hey, it's my first time, man. Okay. Hey, man. You know what I'm saying? I used to rap, but now no more. You know what I'm saying? So the little mic is confused. So long story short, my mom, she would tell me, it was funny because it's kind of embarrassing to say, but it's kind of funny. The little plastic rings around that hold the little 6-pack of soda, I used to cut those before I threw them away. Why? Because I heard they throw that in the ocean, and the dolphins used to die because they couldn't open up their mouth if they had their little, their mouth in there. So, just from a very young age, like just having a concern and developing empathy for other people.
That's crazy. Because my biggest thing that I've been telling myself I need to work on is fucking littering. Hey, he's over here saving the animals at a young age, and I'm over here just tossing shit out my window because I try to give myself. I eat a lot of organic things, so when it comes to like apples, I'm quick to throw those out the window. Right. Some people view that as littering. I view that as like, it's biodegradable, so the ground is just gonna eat it. So it's not really littering; it's kind of feeding, but feed the grass.
Biodegradable. We're gonna say everything's biodegradable.
But when you were speaking about how, man, you was in the streets, well, you're literally in the streets and you're driving around to these patients' house, man, that made me think about the case management work that I used to do. I've never done it out here, but I spent 2.5 years 2 years or a year and a half, one of those, in Cleveland, Ohio, the worst state ever, worst city ever. Yes, I'm shitting on Cleveland, fucking terrible. Man. But I spent probably a year and a half, 2 years there for graduate school, and one of the first jobs I've had out of graduate school, it was at a case management position. On one end, I was diagnosing people, and I really did love that. I wish I could still do that right now. California's weird, but I was diagnosing people. But another thing, I would really go into the community and help transport people. I would go into the community and help transport people. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with snow, but driving in snow is like the worst shit ever. I'm already from California, so I hate the cold weather, and driving in snow is my first time seeing snow, first time being in snow. So once I started driving in snow, it was like, you out here hitting potholes. You can't really see potholes because of the snow. Like, it was one time I hit a pothole so hard, my wheel came off. Yeah. I hit a pot because it was so big and you can't see it. And they got a lot of potholes because they got the plows coming through, fucking the streets and all that. So they just fill it with something cheap. And they just break up. Yeah. Man, I had a patient in my car this one day. Crazy. I hit a pothole so hard my wheel came off. And I was scared. Not really for myself, but and not even really for the patient. But for the sake of if something happens on your job while you're in the field with the patient, there's a lot of things that can go on. Like if the patient decides, my ankle hurt and blah blah blah. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Then they might blame me. They might have to put me on whatever the case may be.
You never know. Because, agencies or whoever you're working for, they can say whatever.
Exactly. So I didn't know what could happen. But the The patient that day, he was mad cool. He's like, yeah, Cleveland is shit. I'm trying to leave too. I'm like, man, me too. But, you know, that day, yeah. So when you brought that up, it was like, yeah, but I've never went from Redondo Beach to a nice house to like Skid Row. No, it was projects to projects to projects.
Right. And I think that just kind of speaks on the level of like, you know, what mental health is, and like, you know, there's really no barrier for that, because everybody has, you know, their own issues and stuff that they deal with. So whether somebody does have money or doesn't have money, or, you know, coming from the different social economical backgrounds, like, mental health affects everybody. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It can affect anybody.
It don't matter how much money you got in your account. It don't matter what job you have. It don't matter how old you are. No matter any of that. You know, mental illness, nobody's immune to anything when it comes to mental illness. Whether it's depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline anxiety, nobody is immune to any of that stuff. One of the huge populations that I see at work is a lot of individuals seek therapy, and a lot of individuals, you know, their anxiety and their depression starts to kind of, you know, happen because of work-related stuff. Yeah. A lot of stuff happens from work. Just and a lot of people may assume, oh, you got a job, you're paying your bills and all these other stuff. You think you cool. Right. And it's like, no, that's not the case.
Dude, like, honestly, like, it's coming up on a year, because we're just talking about how, like, mental health affects everybody. I was currently diagnosed with a mental health condition. Okay. It's coming up on about a year or so. And it was kind of crazy, one, because, you know, I was in grad school at the time. I had just started a business. You know, money was funny. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm sitting there doing Postmates. I'm sitting there doing donating plasma. I'm sitting there working full time, and I'm like, you know, stuff's not cutting it. But it just having that, and then the funny thing was, because I didn't really know what was going on. But long story kind of short, I had went to the doctor, and they kind of just explained to me, you know, I told them what was going on, and it was like, well, it sounds like you have a lot of anxiety. And I was like, you know what, I think it is, you know, a lot of anxiety and stuff like that. But the thing that kind of got me was like, you know, because I'm sitting there, I've diagnosed plenty of people, right? But having somebody diagnose me, it was just totally different. I was sitting there dang, is that what that feels like? I was like, is that what that feels like? That's like, and I think that put a different kind of spin on like the work that I do, because just being really, really mindful of like, you know, how I'm diagnosing people and like, you know, what that kind of feels like, and like being, you know, going from therapist to being a client, you know what I'm saying? And then actually, you know, still, you know, starting to do therapy myself. It's like, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, there's just a lot of stuff going on. Like I had like a little panic attack and stuff like that. I remember it was funny because I was in New Orleans for a conference. And during that conference, the day one, right? So we was out there in New Orleans, Bourbon Street, having a lot of fun. I had woke up and like, I was like, I am messed up right now. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying messed up like I was drunk or anything like that, because, you know, we was out there having fun, but I was like, this is just something totally different. Like, I can't move. I can't breathe. My chest is tight. I can't go to a conference like this. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it was interesting because even just like telling my classmates, like, look, like, you know, this was going on and this was happening. Because a lot of people was like, oh, Terrence, he passed out and he, like, you know, was drinking too much or something like that. But I was like, that wasn't the case. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to be honest, it would have been easier to say that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It would have been way easier to say, like, you know what? Yeah, I did drink too much. I did do that. But that wasn't the case. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew what it was. I'm like, this isn't no hangover. This is like something tough. And it's crazy because, like, I didn't know what led up to it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what led up to me having this anxiety, because, like, I was having fun. I was cool. But the thing about that whole situation was, like, it was, you know, one, it was kind of embarrassing because, like, you know, talking about labels, like, you know, I knew I had, you know, just got diagnosed like a couple weeks before. And then just having this happen in public, and like,
what were you diagnosed with?
Anxiety, like anxiety. Yeah, general anxiety. So like NOS, so not other specified. Yeah. So, and I didn't, you know, start medication or anything like that. I was like, you know, I'll see a therapist and all that stuff. So, but all that stuff was, it was just kind of like all confusing at the time. It was really, really confusing at the time. And I was just like, man, like what's going on. And then, once I started, breaking a lot of stuff down, it was just like, okay, one, I'm working way too much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to school at night after I go to work. I'm sitting here waking up at 3 a.m. getting this plasma line to get this quick little $30 so I can get some gas and go back and forth. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting here on the weekends trying to do Postmates. I'm just doing the most. Yeah, I'm just doing the most. And it's kind of like what you was kind of hitting on was like, a big stressor sometimes is just finances. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's especially with like men or black men, like, us trying to maneuver in this society, and like, finances being like a big stressor, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a lot of stuff going on, and I'm so glad, one, that I had that experience. Two, I'm so glad that, I had the sense enough for me to understand like what mental health was and like the benefits that therapy does have.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is an advantage because, like, say for example, if I wasn't in this field and all that stuff was going on, I wasn't gonna go see no therapist.
You didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, I was like, I'm cool. I'm gonna shake it off. I'm gonna, do whatever. But you really, just sit there and trying to have an honest conversation with yourself, and and me, trying to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah, but on the other side of that, and this is something that I still battle with like every day, when the therapist has to see a therapist, right? When the therapist has to see a therapist, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Am I not? Because I'm over here telling the next person everything that they should do, and if I'm telling the next person what they should do,
right,
I'm telling the next person what they should do, and it's working for them, but I can't tell myself what I should do.
Right.
Am I a good therapist? And sometimes you can like be big-headed a little bit. Like me, myself, I'm not even going to front. It's still hard for me to get over that concept, the therapist seeing a therapist. And even though I know all of these things, and granted, looking at it, it's fully pride, fully ego, and fully probably still some of my own personal insecurities or whatever, is, do I really still want to sit in front of a person and have these talks? Because I believe that I can get over a lot of things on my own, and because I help so many people, it's kind of like I have the answers in my pocket, so let me just pull something out. But it's I have to sometimes understand that even myself, I do need the help, even as a therapist.
Right.
And the therapist is going to need that.
Right. And it's interesting that you say that, because that's why I kind of was like, well, I know what a coping skill is. I know what CBT is. I know what DBT is. I know all these little interventions. But at the same time, you kind of got to think about, like, sometimes a barber doesn't cut their own hair.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes a mechanic may need a alternative perspective from somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not the fact of like, we not knowing what needs to be done, but sometimes you as a therapist, I think sometimes we need an alternative perspective on like what's going on, because and that's the thing, like, we're in this field, we help people, but sometimes, like, even with speaking with self-care, part of my self-care is like seeing my therapist. You know what I'm saying? And I'll get into like, because I'm in the transition switching therapist, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But just knowing that, like, just for me and understanding, like, I know the benefits of it and what it's done for me thus far, and not, coming up on almost a year of doing it, and like just seeing the growth and progress, and that I personally have overcame. Like, it is a lot of benefit to it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of benefit to it. And again, like, you may have that therapist and you be like, nope, nope, that's why I say I'm in transition of switching therapists right now, because like the therapist I had was just like, he tried to give me a different diagnosis, and for me, I know the DSM. Yeah. So those that don't know, the DSM is like, in our field we call it the Building Bible, but it's a book that we use as a resource to get different symptoms and different symptoms, and where if it's like rituals and stuff like that people are going through.
And one of the things I want to, sorry to cut you off, but one of the things I want to always tell patients, I always tell people in general, when it comes to like a lot of these disorders, especially the DSM, which stands for Diagnostic Statistical Manual, all of this stuff is public knowledge. Like, you can go on a computer and see what you may be diagnosed with, if you're diagnosed with something. How does that apply to you, and if you even agree with that diagnosis? Right. Like, because we use the same book.
Right.
Therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, it's all the same thing. But you can go on the internet yourself and just look up the symptoms, look up the criteria to see if you fit it. That within itself is going to allow you to figure out, okay, what could I do to actually help myself out? So I just wanted to mention that
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's all public knowledge.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like, you know, when I do diagnose, like, one of my clients or one of my patients, like, I'll sit there and have a conversation with them, like, you know, this is what I'm observing, this is what you're kind of telling me, and this is, you know, what, based on the DSM, you know, this is what the criteria you fit for your diagnosis. And the thing too is, like, you and diagnosing, and I know, like, you know, get into labeling, like, you know, sometimes it's not accurate the first time. Like, you have to think about it, like, you know, and that's where where patients kind of comes in with mental health. It's not like you're gonna have a big breakthrough your first session. You know what I'm saying? You may need to be re-diagnosed sometimes. Like, a lot of times with diagnosis, especially in the African American community, or, like, you know, in the Hispanic community,
misdiagnosed a lot.
Yeah, very, very much so. Just based on, you know, not, you know, clinicians not being culturally competent. Yeah. So, like, if somebody's having, if, say, for example, if there's not cultural considerations taken in, and somebody's saying, like, yeah, I talk to people at night that may not be there. Okay, you're schizophrenic. Well, that might be like something in somebody's religion where they talk to the ancestors at night before they go to bed or something like that. So not having that level of knowledge, like, you know, you can, you know, you got to be, you know, and this is just more for, like, for clinicians, like, you got to be really careful with diagnosing people, because if you don't really know them, you're not going to really be able to accurately diagnose who they are.
That's true. And then also on the other end, and I've experienced this a lot when I was diagnosing people, is, you know, those individuals who are willing to unethically diagnose someone. So when a patient is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're diagnosing someone and the patient is telling you things, when the patient is telling you a lot of their symptoms, you have certain diagnoses that's going to pop up in your head. Okay, I'm gonna put you in this kind of box, right? You fit some type of mood disorder, some type of psychotic disorder.
Right.
However, there are going to be certain times to where an individual may hit every single criteria except one. It may hit every single criteria except two. Right. And because of that, you have to use an unspecified, right? You have to use an unspecified because he doesn't directly fit that criteria, so we can't just put him there.
Right.
Sometimes, though, there are going to be some therapists, some psychiatrists who may just, okay, let's diagnose him with this, with depression, because he just missed one criteria. He just missed one little thing, so it we'll be able to skate that. But it's that right there is very harmful, especially within the African American community, because a lot of us are misdiagnosed, especially the children, A lot of them are misdiagnosed, and I see this all the time. There's kind of like a path for a lot of individuals who are diagnosed at a young age. They're diagnosed at a young age. They get put on these medications. And the medications make them behave a certain way. Right. And because they're behaving a certain way, they're thrown into a special education class. They're put on this specific program. Right. And then they're not able to really do well in school. Right. And because they're not able to do well in school, they're going to act the fool in their community. And if they act the fool in the community, then they might land up in jail or somewhere like that. And it's crazy because there's different ways to get towards, I guess, that stereotypic end result that a lot of people think we're going to be, which is dead in jail. And a lot of clinicians, I don't believe, really take into account how important it is to properly diagnose someone at that time. Right. Because we don't want to misdiagnose someone and put that label on someone. Because what happens when we put that label on someone, they're going to believe that they themselves are that. Right? If I can be this very, very happy person, very, very happy person, but if someone diagnosed me with depression, I'm going to look at that like, yo, now I'm a depressed person. Right. So that label, even within itself, is going to cause me to be depressed, even though I was never really depressed. Right. You know, I was never really depressed. I may have just been sad. I may have had a few things going on, but me being put, that label being put on me is going to cause me to feel that certain way. One of the disorders that I really thoroughly hate is oppositional defiance disorder. And there's disorders and there's disorders in the DSM that I firmly disagree with, that I firmly don't believe is a disorder. One of the disorders that I firmly disagree with in there and I believe should be taken out is, and this is probably gonna be a whole nother conversation, but is pedophilic disorder. pedophilia is a mental disorder, is a mental illness within the DSM. But that, like I said, that's a whole. That's one of those that I disagree with. But I digress. But oppositional defiance disorder. What oppositional defiance disorder is, to break it down into the simplest form, is a kid who's bad. Yeah. A kid who doesn't listen.
Right.
So a lot of the black kids within our community, we are very active in schools, and a lot of these disorders primarily only take place in schools. When it comes to ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder, ODD, a lot of them take place primarily only in school. When you have children who can't sit down, when you have children cursing out the teacher, when you have children that are bad, and trust me, I was one of those badass kids. Like I firmly remember, I had a high school teacher. We used to fuck with him. I pulled his toupee off before.
Oh, man.
I made a teacher in my middle school class quit.
Right.
And it's always those white teachers that we believe we can get over on. So it's like, fucking, I'm finna act a fool.
Right.
So I was the kid in school that I would do my work early, because I was never like an idiot. I would do my work early, and then I would either mess with the teacher, get on her nerves, or I would leave, go to my homies' classrooms, pull them out, and then we would go and terrorize the whole of the school.
Right.
Like I remember one time. This is probably the dumbest thing I did in class. I remember one time it was in a Spanish class, and my teacher was doing work, and she had left. She was doing work off of her computer, and the what's the thing, the prompter, whatever,
the projector.
The projector. There we go. She was using that, so she left. Did something. I got on the computer, and I was in the 9th grade. Like an idiot, I put up a porno on her computer. So the porno is showing on the actual TV. I mean, showing on the wall.
Oh, damn.
And she come back. What the fuck? And it's like bad. It is like bad little stuff like that.
But it's, at the same time, like, you know, I think we just learn differently. You know what I'm saying? And like a lot of times, like, you know, we're like, oh, like ADHD or, you know, whatever you want to call it. A lot of times, like, you know, sometimes we just need to be stimulated and give them something to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we learn differently. So it's like, you know, traditionally, like, us being in a Eurocentric learning center and like learning style, I should say, is where the teacher sits up front and we just kind of receive what the teacher's saying, instead of like, you know, going back to, you know, not only African traditions, but like, you know, other traditions practice this as well. Is like, you know, people sitting in a circle and interacting. You know what I'm saying? And like talking to each other and learning from each other and like passing information and giving each other knowledge, as opposed to like, you know, somebody, and a lot of stuff. And even like in high school, like, you know, I wasn't that bad. I was involved in stuff like that. So I didn't pull up no pornos. I didn't pull up no pornos, nothing like that. But like the thing is, like, the stuff I was learning in high school and like even elementary school wasn't really intriguing to me until I went to Northridge and I started taking like PAS classes. And, you know, they call it Africana Studies now. But when I started learning about myself, you know what I'm saying? Like when I started learning about where I come from, and like, you know, instead of having like a little segment of Martin Luther King and like, okay, we're gonna draw Martin Luther King for Black History Month and post it on the wall. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit. It's a lot deeper than that.
It's about understanding. It's about understanding, like you just said, how that individual learns. So a lot of people, a lot of young kids are diagnosed with certain things only because the teacher can't handle them. Right? You may have a bad kid. Well, not. I'm putting this in quotations. A bad kid who may act a fool, may be loud, and things like that. When in reality, that kid may be hungry. That kid probably can't see. You know, but they're too afraid to say I can't see, so I'm just going to act a fool.
Right.
That kid may be legitimately, like you said, bored because their learning style isn't conducive to the way you're teaching as a teacher. So it's not even the kid that's wrong. It's just that you as a teacher need to be mindful of certain things and be able to adjust the way you're teaching to that. So these individuals wouldn't have to be diagnosed with certain things.
Right. And it goes along like that even runs deep too, because like, you know, like a lot of kids are exposed to a lot of trauma every day, whether if it's like domestic violence in the home or they've been like, you know, sexually molested or a lot. It should be a lot. And then they gotta go to school the next day.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot that goes with it. I don't necessarily work with kids right now, but when I did work with kids and juveniles, like a lot of the behaviors acting out was coming from like the home. And like, you know, once you start doing the work and like, you know, like I said, a lot of teachers, they're not really trained for that stuff. You know what I'm saying? A lot of teachers aren't really trained for all that stuff. But like I said, even with the diagnosis and like the labeling and stuff like that, it's a lot of stuff is just And I think I love this field so much too, because like it's so intriguing to me, only because like, you know,
You're never bored.
there's always something
Never.
popping off, bro. There's always something popping off. You're always going to be doing something. But like even for like even going back to diagnoses and stuff like that, there's really it's all self-report, and it's what you see and what the person tells you. Like, you know, you can go to the doctor and you get a blood test and be like, oh, you have diabetes or you're high cholesterol, you have this. There's no blood test or nothing like that for mental health.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So like as far as like the misdiagnosing, you really have to take time. You really have to take and this goes for like, you know, clinicians and like, you know, people that are being diagnosed, because, you know, initially you may be misdiagnosed. You know what I'm saying? And it may take time for you to like be comfortable to talk about certain stuff, or, you know, if you was, you know, related, or if you did have a traumatic experience, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that PTSD just because you had a traumatic experience?
Yeah.
Like, it's not always going to be PTSD just because you experienced trauma. You know what I'm saying? There's symptoms that go along with PTSD that, and I think we had this conversation, like when I initially talked to you, was like, you know, people saying, oh, I have OCD because like, you know, the house is dirty.
Clean. Yeah.
Like, no, you just like things clean.
He's
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's different, like, people that have OCD have rituals. There's really, really big functional impairments to people that have OCD. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, even just with my experience, and having that label of like anxiety, which for me is like, you know, something that, one, just having that diagnosis on my medical record, but also just having an understanding of like what it is. You know what I'm saying?
But let's speak about that, right? The diagnosis on the medical record, because one of the things that is important for us within the Black community understands is that's on your medical record. That's not on your criminal record. Right? So when you're out there looking for a job, and a lot of patients tell me that they don't want to be diagnosed with anything because it's going to appear on their record, and it may stop them from getting them a job. That's completely false, right? It's not on your criminal record, it's on your medical record. And if it is on your criminal record, it's because your schizophrenia caused you to kill someone.
Right. If it's related to the crime.
If it's related to the crime, then it will be on your criminal record.
Right.
However, on the flip side, you know, having that on your medical record, sometimes it can be used as, you know, a tool, right? Especially if you're an individual trying to work within the actual field. Right. It's important. If you're working in the field, I believe it's important to let the employer know, hey, you know, I am diagnosed with XYZ, and I've experienced this, and I've been hospitalized, because that person is going to be like, oh, you understand what these people are going through. You had the experience. That's going to make you more qualified than the next person. But it is not on your criminal record. That's the only thing that the jobs are looking for. What felonies or crimes have you committed? And if that mental disorder or if that mental illness is not related to the crime, it's not on it.
Yeah, your medical records is something that, you know, you
Sealed.
sealed is something that you know, it's only unless you tell them.
Yeah.
Really. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't need, it's just like, you think about mental health, like physical health, like if they don't, you know, unless the job requires you like a big physical, I don't know, a big physical demand, then it's going to be like, okay, I got bad knees, I need to let you know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But even, I think in our field, and I think that's a blessing too, when I'm working in this field, there's really, I could go to one of my coworkers or my supervisor, like, hey, I got a diagnosis, which I haven't, you know what I'm saying? But because I don't feel like it's necessary. But if I did, they'll be like, you know what? And they probably, I mean, there's coworkers that I work with that tell me they go to therapy too. Like, and it's just the nature of the field of, like, you know, mental health and being a mental health clinician. Like, a lot of people you work with, you know, do suffer from, you know, mental health related illnesses too. So it's one of those things too, and it's where I feel like even right now we're getting into we're working into a period where, like, you know, it's starting to be more acceptable. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot more people coming out saying, I do have an illness. I did struggle with depression. I do struggle with anxiety. I am schizophrenic. I do take medication. But then there's also a lot of people who manipulate it too.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
facts.
I'm just going to put it out there. He was one of my top 5 back in the day, Kanye West.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Kanye West. And this is probably going to be a whole little thing, but, you know, like, we have I'm just using the quote, like, Kanye West is out there that's like, you know, have a mental disability or mental illness thing, but it's going to the factor where it's like being, the person's not working on it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like people may, you know, trying to manipulate it or trying to like put it to a whole different little category where mental illness is something serious to deal with. So like if people are like playing around, say, oh, I'm bipolar and I'm acting crazy, I'm doing da-da-da-da, like for me, that's kind of offensive.
Yeah, let's not use mental illness as an excuse to act a fool.
Right, and exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, it's because of this. Or like that's not really what it is. Like, you know, mental health is something that should be taken seriously and like be worked on. You know what I'm saying? It's not something, for me, it's not something to play with.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Even like I have clients that come up to me for intake or whatnot and like tell me like, you know, I just broke up with my boyfriend or my partner or whatever it is and I'm feeling depressed. And I love when they do that because like even they may not be so severe to the point where they may get services with us and they just might need some short-term counseling. I like that because they're taking the time to work on what they're going through.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, you know, letting it build up and then like letting it explode and like, oh, like acting a fool on social media, which,
True.
you know, and I'm only speaking on Kanye just because I think everybody kind of knows who he is and like what's going on with him right now. But there's a lot of people out there that I feel like they use mental health as a way to manipulate.
And what that does is that makes it harder for the other individuals who are actually seeking the help to actually go out and seek the help, because what's going to happen is the public is going to believe, okay, that's how.
Right.
I don't know what Kanye West came out and said he was diagnosed with.
I think it was like bipolar.
Okay,
or
so
like
if it was bipolar, you know, the public is going to believe, okay, the people with bipolar behave like Kanye West.
Right.
That's absolutely false.
Absolutely.
See, we're in a place to where the conversation around mental health is strictly speaking about, you know, destigmatizing that actual conversation.
Exactly.
And that is big.
Right, because people are dying over this stuff. You know
Very, very dying. And that is big. Mm-hmm. That is extremely big.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we need to take into account is, like, when it comes to the stigma around mental health, at the end of the day, that's just public opinion, right? It's just people's opinion.
True
but
story.
on the other end, what I don't really hear anybody speaking about is the self-stigma, right? The self-stigma. So when it comes to stigma and self-stigma, stigma is the public opinion, right? I believe people with borderline personality disorder bipolar disorder behave like Kanye West. Or I believe people with depression are weak and sad and they cry all the time. And I believe people with schizophrenia are crazy. Right? That's the public opinion. When it comes to self-stigma, what it do is we attach public opinions to who we are once we're labeled with whatever we're labeled with.
Right.
So if I'm diagnosed with, if I've always my whole life been like this strong-willed man who like got over everything, and then I end up getting diagnosed with depression.
Right.
What's going to happen is I'm going to see that the public says people with depression are this, and I'm going to attach that to who I am.
Right.
And now I'm that individual. I'm the weak person. I am that guy. I am that individual.
Right.
Because what happened is it's kind of like a like three parts to it, to this whole little thing. And the reason why this whole stigma and self-stigma is kind of big to me is because I've thought about it a lot, and which is why I said early on this kind of this concept and this labeling aspect is kind of, you know, important for me, is because, you know, there's three aspects when it comes to it. You have the awareness point, you have the agreement point, and then you have the application of it. Right. The awareness is like, society, the stigma when it comes to depression is that I'm weak and that I'm this and everything else. Do I agree with that? The other point is, do I agree with that?
Right.
Do I agree that people with depression are weak? Do I agree with people with schizophrenia are crazy? Do I agree with all of this stuff? Right. And if I agree with that and I somehow, some way, someday get diagnosed with schizophrenia, right, am I going to apply what I just agreed with to me?
Right.
And then once I apply that concept of being crazy, the stigma, public opinion of being crazy to who I am, the next portion is why I try.
Right.
Why I try to get help. Why I try to do this. Why I try to seek therapy. Why I try to do all these other things, because that's who I am. I am not Willis anymore. I am schizophrenia.
Right. And that's the thing too. I really, for me, as I like, you know, develop like my skills as a therapist, I really try to empower my clients. One, having them have understanding, like, you know, you're not your diagnosis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You are, you know, and learn to love yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like off tops, learn to love yourself. You know, and a lot of times it's like, you know, it's a big barrier because a lot of people don't accept it.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? And that's, you know, a lot of that stuff stems from you know, like you were saying, like a lot of people don't know about, like a lot of people associate like schizophrenia with being crazy, or like, you know, they associate with depression as being weak, especially males. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, like it's all that big, it's all in this big pot where it's like you really have to like compartmentalize. Like, this is me, this is my diagnosis, this is what you know, you have to really take the time to work.
You got to separate yourself.
Right. You got to really break all that stuff down, and all that stuff, like I said, doesn't happen in one session. It may not happen in a year. I mean, it takes time.
It takes time.
You know, and it takes a lot of time.
It even goes off with how that clinician chooses to diagnose that individual, and what are some of the first words that they tell that person. Because there's a difference between being mentally ill and having a mental illness.
Right. I remember you saying that in the last couple of
Yeah.
episodes.
There's a difference between being mentally ill and having a mental illness. Like if I'm a person that's being mentally ill, I've now taken that word and taken that mental illness, and I've inherited that with who I am. Wholeheartedly, everything. But if I'm just Willis with depression, if I'm just Willis this, then that's the same thing with I'm just Willis with cancer.
Right.
You know, we're not really. You're not the depression. Like you were just saying, you're not the depression. You are such and such with depression. Depression is just there. It's
or
just
even if you choose to even say the with part.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Even if you choose to say like I am Terrence with anxiety. I don't say like I'm Terrence with it. I just got it. Like I got it. I accept it. I work on it. You know, I'm mindful of it. I, you know, talk to, you know, people who I feel comfortable talking to about it. You know what I'm saying? And that's just one of the things, like, I just have kind of in my back pocket. Like, you know, so, and the thing, too, is for me, I have, and it's kind of, like I said, it's empowering for me only because, like, when something does come up, I have an awareness, like, okay, I need to check myself because, like, this is, like, something that can go completely left.
All the way.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is something that, and like I said, once you know what it is, there is going to be, like, for me, I had that judgment for myself. I'm like, damn, like, I'm supposed to be the professional. I'm supposed to be the one diagnosing people, and now look at me. You know what I'm saying? But the thing too is like it's empowering because like I said, there's a lot of therapists out there with a diagnosis and with that label, and like and you really, and like I said, it really takes time. Even like, you know, you may not vibe with your therapist, or you may not initially like want to accept what's going on, but you know, like I said, it goes back to like, you know, you loving yourself, you know, understanding what it is, understanding like the symptoms, and like, you know, just being mindful of it.
Yeah,
you know
that empowering yourself.
Exactly.
Right? It kind of goes into what I was speaking about in regards to the self-care piece that I was speaking about.
Right.
You know, with the importance of rewarding yourself and telling yourself, you know, all of these positive things, because all of that is going to help out with your mental health and your mental wellness. All of that is because we have to tell ourselves these things, and then when we're diagnosed with something, like we've been saying throughout this whole piece, is, you know, we are not that actual label. Right. And one of the ways to actually make sure that you do not become that label is to always empower yourself, right? Always, one, empower yourself, and then two, if you choose to, right? You mentioned that you don't say it at work, but you said it here. It's to open up about what I do have. Right.
And it's more so like if somebody is like listening and like, you know, struggling with the same things, like I put myself to be vulnerable to talk about it. Only because, like, you know, I know people's been vulnerable to talk about their situation that kind of empowered me as well. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes a lot of stuff, like, even with depression, a lot of the stuff is, like, you really feel like you're alone in what you're going through. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But there's other people out there that are struggling with the same things, and it's pretty common. That's one thing I do tell a lot of my patients. I was like, you know what you're going through is pretty common. You know what I'm saying? You're going to feel like, you know, if I was in your situation, I'll probably feel the same way. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's normal for you to feel sad. It's normal for you to have, like, these thoughts about yourself. But, you know, just going back to the treatment and having that understanding and, you know, building that rapport. And, like, you know, if they are misdiagnosed, or if they need to if they need additional help, like groups or individual therapy, or, like, you know, some of the times, like, you know, it's situational stuff. Like, okay, I'm homeless I just recently got homeless, so now, like, all this stuff is coming up for me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, like, okay, like, let's work on, you know, we could work on the therapy, but also, like I said, I like social work. You know what I'm saying? Because social work is one, you can do the mental health side, but you can also do case management as well. So, like, that's kind of like more so why I chose the field, because it's really broad.
It bridges the gap.
Everything's involved with social work. Like even my, shout out to my girlfriend. She's in New York right now. She's doing consulting and she's a social worker. You know what I'm saying? But she understands with therapy and casework and all that stuff. So with social work in the field that I'm in right now, is like, you have to understand, like, sometimes, some people may be going through a rut. Some people it may be a situational thing. They may need money or need jobs, or but once all that stuff comes into play, everything might be okay after that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100% true.
Like a lot of, I feel like we all kind of go through these little ruts and these little situations too.
Sometimes that label is extremely helpful.
Right.
Because a lot of us, what we need to do is we believe that we have to put a stamp or a name on whatever is wrong with us.
Yeah.
And if we put that name on it, it's like, okay, now I know what direction to go.
Right.
And that sometimes that's the same thing for for a lot of the therapists out there.
Right.
Now that we're diagnosing you with this, I know exactly how to assist you with what you're going through.
Right.
That label or that name, that diagnosis that you're going to be diagnosed with is extremely helpful in those regards, right? So let's take a step into the comments, man, and see what's going on. There's been a good amount of activity. Scroll up. We got Tanisha. Do you feel like all of us have some type of diagnosis but don't even know it? I feel as if no, all of us don't have some type of diagnoses. However, a lot of people who are diagnosed share a lot of the common regular day symptoms of everything else in life. Everybody gets sad. Everybody kind of gets depressed. You spoke about anxiety. Everybody has anxiety, some form of anxiety. It's just nervousness at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Everybody has it. It's just on the levels of which you have it. Like, we all, at the ground level, we all kind of start at zero. And then we all have it at certain paces. Some people may blow up a little quicker than others. Some people may have a little bit under control. But at some point, the symptoms in which we may be diagnosed with, a lot of individuals, even with myself, I share a lot of the symptoms of some people who may be, I don't know, schizophrenic. Because I talk to myself a lot.
I do too, and I'm like, I'll sit there cleaning up. Like, what did I just say? Who am I talking?
I have conversations with myself all of the time. I post little videos on Instagram, little morning messages, and those are literally conversations that I be having with myself in my car.
Right.
So a lot of people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, they talk to themselves because they hear voices. We may have certain symptoms, but the severity of those symptoms is what causes someone to be diagnosed with something. Keith, it's definitely hard to get into your own mind. Definitely get hard to get into your mind. Anyone knows the stats on how often people get diagnosed? I don't know the exact stats of how often people get diagnosed, but I know the misdiagnosis within the African American community is extremely high.
Right. I think I did my capstone on that, and like I was talking just more so about, I was speaking more so like African Americans being misdiagnosed, and this is from a clinical perspective. And then the question I had proposed was like, after building a healthy relationship with African American clients, did you feel like they were diagnosed? I think about it was like 73% people say they did misdiagnose them.
Yeah. Keith also said pedophiles fall under sex addiction in my opinion. What the fuck, Keith?
So it's interesting you say that, because I used to work with sex offenders before my job right now, and
I work with sex offenders now.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That I think a lot of the stuff, and this is a whole different conversation, like you were saying. I think a lot of the stuff, and this is just my opinion. This isn't like facts. It's just my opinion that a lot of the stuff that people do sexually or whatever it is, like if they're messing, with underage kids or having these impulsive sexual behaviors, a lot of that stuff stems from other stuff. It's not just sex. It's like it's something else that, whether it's instant gratification or whether it's they may have been molested themselves.
Yeah,
like it's a lot. It gets deeper, but like I said, it's based on the individuals. I don't want to categorize everybody.
Yeah, everybody's different, and
right.
You're extremely right. A lot of things are traumatic at heart. And what I mean by that is I can think back to a patient of mine who was 19. No, he was 20. He was 20, and he had raped, I believe, his sister. I believe he raped his sister. But you speaking about sex offense, he raped his sister, and the thing is that he was raped his whole entire life.
Right.
And with him, I remember him telling me verbatim, right after I was raped, my father would tell me that he loved me. Right after I was molested,
See,
my
that's
father
deep.
would tell me he loves me.
That is deep.
So what's going on there is he's equating love with rape. He's equating love with molesting or having sex with someone of a younger age.
Exactly.
And that right there is a whole nother type of trauma and a bigger hole that needs to really be dived into. So the sex addiction part, I ain't really sure, but you know where it's based from. I don't really know if a lot of individuals who are sex offenders just because you know it comes from some form of trauma. Terrence worked with them badass kids. Yeah.
Who said that?
Keith.
Oh, that was back at the rant. I used to work at Boys Place, man, out there in the valley.
My boy Gomez says we ask for help online and then people get the likes and the comments. You gonna be good and keep doing this, as opposed to asking a physical person and making sure they understand. Definitely true, right? We it's because we don't put it's not a face to it, right? We ask for help online because it's a little bit easier. I'm not sitting there talking to the person face to face, and I'm hiding behind my phone. So even though there's a picture up of me, even though my name may be in my bio, whatever the case may be, I can say that wasn't me. I can say my phone was hacked. I can say all of these things. So it allows us, it gives us that kind of veil to really kind of hide behind. You know, men deal with a lot, so we turn to the bottle or something, gateway. Oh yeah, the bottle, and a lot of things when it comes to substance abuse is that substance is never the actual problem.
Right.
That substance is the solution to the problem. So you have to go back and figure out what that problem is. And yeah, you have to go back and to figure out what that problem is. Because a lot of it, we use the substance to get away from our pain.
Right.
So weed, the drugs, the meth, the cocaine, the bottle, it's healing. Even though it's
a coping skill.
It's a coping skill.
It really is like it's a negative, it's an unhealthy coping skill, but it's a coping skill.
It's a coping skill. It definitely is a coping skill. Sometimes we don't want to disturb someone's positive vibe, so we keep it. Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of the times, you know, I know it's like we go into a situation thinking that, you know, well, I go into in this room like I know I need help, so my plan is to ask for help, but then I go into the room, everybody's having a ball, fun, and I don't want to screw up the vibe. It's like, it's literally a poster sitting in front of me saying, please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space. So if I'm having a bad day and I come in here and everybody else in here is chilling and everything else, I'm like, yo, you know what? Let me just keep this for myself right now. But if you choose to keep it to yourself right now, please do this. Soak in the energy within the room.
Right.
Because you're not obligated to tell someone, but what you can do is soak in the energy. Right within the room.
True story.
Last thing is Dr. Clay. Okay, what's up? Question: what systems can we put in place to address mental health awareness within the Black community? Support groups, specifically for men, perhaps. Just asking. What up, Trav? Tra.
Oh, T. Raw. I think that's Dr. Johnson. Is that
Clay?
I'm like, what? Hey! Shout out to Dr. Johnson, man, because one, he's one of the he's a black male, and he is a doctor, obviously, but he really paved the way for me and like got me like where I'm at today. So big shout out to Dr. Johnson, man. What was his question?
So his question was what systems can we put in place to address mental health awareness in the Black community, such as support groups and things like that. For me, one of the biggest things is mental health in the Black community. As far as what systems can we put in place, I believe it's important that we attack the youth. That we kind of start there. We start in schools, we start in our household, and we start with the youth, because, and the only reason why I say that is because my patients, they range from the age of 7 to like 80, 90 years old. And one of the things that I notice is a lot of the times I see, okay, you're the path that a 9, 10, 12, 13, and some adolescents are on is going to lead them into being here on these much more acute units, you know, on these harsher units, when they're 18, when they're 19, when they're 20. And at that age, as a kid, we learn to bottle up our emotions. We learn to not speak on it. You briefly spoke about it. We learn to use mental illness as a scapegoat. We learn to say, I only say this because there's a lot of patients of mine who do this. We learn to say, I'm thinking about suicide so I can run away from my situation at home.
Right.
Because that's going to put me somewhere to where it's actually safe. When in reality, we need to work at. So when it comes to certain systems that needs to be put at place, support groups, peer groups, things like that needs to be done at schools and start at the lower level when it comes to teens and adolescents and the youth and things like that. But also what's very big for me is rapport, right? We briefly spoke about it when we initially had this conversation, is that when it comes to rapport, that's extremely important. But as a male within social work and as a black male within this field, that's kind of our privilege.
It really is.
We have a privilege because what it does is it allows us to be much more vulnerable. It allows us to have a better rapport with a lot of our patients.
Right.
So if there's a support group going on, let's say, I don't know, at my high school, Lock High, if there's a support group going on, please let that be with somebody who is from that community, who's of that community. So I would go there and do something like that. Terrence would go there and do something like that. Someone who's a bit more understanding.
Right. Somebody is like I said, it's really empowering. Just like have somebody that looks like you and talking about the things. I think also like getting integrated mental health into like these barbershops, churches, beauty salons, and stuff like that, because I think there's a push right now to like have like priests and people that are religious leaders get counseling or get kind of up to date on like what mental health is and how, because like I said, a lot of black folks, we don't go to therapy, might go to church or kind of talk about in the barbershop or whatnot. But how do we and I know there's some people I know that's working to create like a training for those people, so like when people do come to them talking about like, man, like this is going on, that's going on, or they're talking to like their religious leaders or preacher or priest or whoever it is, that they're equipped with the tools to like deal with this stuff. Because it's one thing, and this is just me speaking again, it's one thing because I do believe in a higher power, but at the same time it's like I believe our higher power will give us the ability to work on these things ourselves too. You know what I'm saying?
Free will.
Exactly, with that guidance. So, if we have both of those components working together, and also you have a support of a church or like a religious institution, then you see a little bit more healing going on as well. So like integrating in those spaces as well, I think will kind of destigmatize and also like meet the clients and those people who are struggling with those things where they're at too.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. We always speak big. We always speak about opening up because that's a clear and easy path towards destigmatizing this. But sometimes opening up can be kind of bad, because you may open up to someone and get the wrong information, right? And that within itself could cause you to be in a deeper depression.
Be mindful of who you tell.
Opening up too. Like, for real, I say this.
Man.
Black people not getting help, I say that's like a really, really big myth. Like, black people do seek help all the time.
Right.
We just don't seek professional help.
Right.
So once we're able to go seek professional help, once we understanding that, hey, we should go seek professional help and this is okay, then us opening up, we will be able to get more of the tools. We will be supplied with the tools that we need in order to get through the situation that we need to get through. We have to do that.
True story.
Right? We have to do that. So, man, I enjoyed this.
Hey, this was fun, man. This is fun.
I definitely enjoyed this.
This is
man.
fun. Most
One
definitely.
of the things that, in closing out, I want to leave, you all with a question. And I had a question initially written down, but this question kind of came up in the midst of me reading the comments and within the conversation. And the question is why in the hell did I just forget it? Yikes. There it go. Boom. The question is, do you allow yourself to be labeled? Do you allow yourself to be labeled? If you do, why? And how does that label, I know it's like 3 questions, but basically, do you allow yourself to be labeled? Right? Do you allow yourself to be labeled? I know me, I've always had a problem with labels because I like to look at myself as a contrarian, right? Contrarian is someone who does things against the norm, who does things against the grain, and I've done things on purpose. Like when everybody was wearing skinny jeans, I was like, no, I'm not wearing skinny jeans. When everybody was getting tattoos, I'm like, no, I'm not getting tattoos. When everybody's doing certain things, I would do everything intentionally to go against it because I did not want to be labeled as everyone else. Like earlier I was speaking about, I don't want to be labeled as a dick. I don't want to be labeled as a fuck boy. I don't want to be labeled as such. You know. So do you allow yourself to be labeled? How do you adjust to that? You want to answer it?
Honestly, this is, like I said, this came with a lot of soul searching. This came with a lot of conversation, to have honest conversation with myself. It's really like you versus you. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Like, it's really not. It's one thing. Like, I don't allow myself to be labeled. To answer that, just because, like, you know, if I do allow myself to be labeled, I feel like I'm enabling myself to maximize my full potential. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I say, oh, I'm this or I'm that or that, then I think that boxes me in so much, and I'm not the type of person to like be restricted so much to a point where, like, if I wanted to do something, then I couldn't do something because of that. But I always trying to overcome, like, you know, any adversity or whatever it is. But so, like, for me to like have a label or like label myself as like whatever it's like like having a diagnosis or even just like being like a, you know, a black male, like, you know what I'm saying, like having that label, like I understand that's what other people may see of me, but I'm not gonna let that not allow me to go into certain spaces and maneuver the way I need to maneuver.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like all that, I think I don't allow myself just to be labeled just because, like, I don't want to, you know, I want to maximize my full potential. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Definitely, man. Definitely. So, do you allow yourself to be labeled? So, Dr. Clay, Risha, Keith, Gomez, Tanisha, thank you for chatting in. And Terry, all the way at the top, thank you for chatting in the chat room, man. For those who are listening, thank you also. For those who will be listening later on, not today, maybe tomorrow, sometime later on down the week, thank you again. And for those who are going to catch on way later on in life, thank you, because you will catch on eventually. Please understand, ain't no wealth without your mental health. So please stay great and take care of yourself. This is Willis Cooks, man. Chillwell Radio. Everybody be safe, y'all. Peace.